Hello, BookTube. It's day 12 of Nonfiction November. I'm back to talking about it. That's an event that was created and hosted by Gemma at Nonfic Books and Olive at A Book Olive, in which they encourage you all to read more nonfiction. And of course, I share that encouragement since nonfiction means everything to me. I read it all the time, I write about it all the time, and I love it. And I've been slowly creeping my way through a lot of canonical examples that I can recommend. And before I paused for a minute there, I was doing a triptych of Renaissance nonfiction for you to read. And the one I want to recommend today is from 1563, and it is one of my favorite books of all time. The Footlocker that I used to travel with. I had Penguin Classics that I had just a handful of them, and I used them. I would piece them together to make a kind of lattice work floor on the bottom of my footlocker, and then everything else would go on top of that. And I went everywhere with them. And this was one of those books. It's the autobiography of Benvenuto Cellini, who was a Florentine silversmith and artist and craftsman who late in life, in his 60s, decided that he would dictate his memoirs. And they are joyously good. They're just joyously good. There's no, they're full of stretching the blanket, as it were. Benvenuto Cellini is the ultimate booster of Benvenuto Cellini, and his book really shows that. It's one outlandish story after another, and he himself in real life was indisputably a genius as an artist and a craftsman, but also a braggart and a violent sexual predator and a bit of an insufferable moron. But it doesn't matter because somehow he manages to transmute those things in his book into golden reading. It's another one of the examples I've been talking about in these recommendations where, boy oh boy, does the reading feel immediate. Boy oh boy, do you feel like you're in the presence of a contemporary. And unlike a lot of books that I've had to mention in this little series, this one has a classic translation into English. John Addington Symonds did a classic translation over a century ago, probably, that still remains really, really good. And it is also by far the most popularly reprinted one. If you find a copy of Benvenuto Cellini's autobiography, it will almost certainly be the Addington Symonds version. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a little creaky here and there. Oxford World Classics did a newer translation with much better notes that will never catch on. You never know when a translation into English is going to achieve a status of a classic on its own, and this has. But if you can find the Oxford version, then by all means get that. The Oxford version is not called the autobiography, it's called My Life, but it hardly matters. And it has a picture on the cover. Most versions of the autobiography do have a picture on the cover of a magnificent sculpture that Benvenuto Cellini did of the triumphant Perseus holding up the severed head of Medusa. And it's a masterpiece. Of course, he did others. We have some of his artwork. We've lost a lot of it. And the way that you know it's a masterpiece is because he'll tell you so himself. His book is full of stories about how I talked to Count so-and-so, Prince so-and-so, Bishop so-and-so, His Holiness so-and-so. And they all said, Benvenuto, you do such great work. He'll be on his horse, riding at breakneck speed through the streets of some town in pursuit of some villain or to avenge some wrong, and his horse will accidentally run up a pile of ceiling tiles that just happen to be in the middle of the road and fly into the air, flip over backwards, and land somehow perfectly on all fours, still running. And there's sorcery and ghosts and witches and all kinds of violence. It's a hoot of a reading experience. Doesn't read like a historical classic at all. So that's my recommendation for today for Nonfiction November is the autobiography of Benvenuto Cellini. Find it at your library. Your library will certainly have a copy. Download a copy from Project Gutenberg. They're all free. Or, Penguin, Oxford, and a million other people in slipcases and illustrated editions and little paperbacks have done this for a century. And there's a reason for that, because it's that good. So that's my recommendation for today. And tomorrow we will move out of the Renaissance. Where will we go? See you then, book two.